Wow, the book I read this week, now that was what I call an epic battle of wills. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing my weekly update. So what actually happened this week, not a real lot on the reading front. I've been pretty tired all week, work's been insane, but I did manage to get through one book, and what I lacked in productivity I certainly made up for in quality, and that quality took the form of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. This is one of the 10 books that I've promised myself I would read in the classic genre, and certainly wasn't disappointed with it. Was it brilliant? No, but I thought it was great. So the story takes place in an Oregon medical facility, more specifically the mental ward, which is ruled by a character called Nurse Ratchet, or Ratchet as I dubbed her. She is such a bitch, such a tyrant, and runs a very, very Nazi-like establishment. She runs things just the way she likes it. She thrives on being in control and keeping the residents there in a constant medical-induced haze, and yeah, she rules with an iron fist until we see the introduction of the main character, Randall McMurphy, who waltzes in. He is an ex-farmhand who has weaseled his way out of a prison term by claiming that he's a psychopath, and he is eventually admitted into this facility. And he swaggers in like John Wayne, and he's full of arrogance and fun and life and zest, and it isn't long before his goal is made very clear, where he plans on rising up to challenge Nurse Ratchet's authority. He won't let things stand on how things are being done. And we see all throughout the book a battle of wills between Nurse Ratchet and McMurphy. The story is told from the viewpoint of Chief Bromden, who is a very large half Indian patient who is seemingly deaf when we meet him at the start of the book. Now, when I say seemingly, it turns out he's not really deaf. He makes out that he's deaf, which is a very effective defense mechanism in my opinion. It enables him to shroud himself in a cloak of invisibility and make himself anonymous and unseen and ignored, and not as picked on by the black boys, or orderlies as I will call them, with political correctness and all that. So for the most part he's left alone, and he goes about his mundane tasks, and we get a good idea of how he's influenced by his medication and that sort of thing. So I had no idea how cruel the 1960s were in terms of mental health. A lot of patients were judged incorrectly and just thrown away from society basically, and they were bullied constantly by the orderlies and subjected to cruelties that would not even be prevalent today. It was a real eye-opener for me. I think Kesey researched his novel really well. I think he spent time in an actual mental ward as part of his research, I believe, and the realism that he writes with was very, very effective, and paints a very vivid picture in your mind on what the psychedelic 60s was actually like. And you don't realise how the orderlies, and Nurse Ratchet in particular, can get away with what they do. They operate with no external oversight. They can do what they want. They can subject the patients to certain cruelties that get overlooked very, very easily. And there were a couple of parts in the book I did find a little confusing. I struggled with the references Bromden makes to fog machines. He several times throughout the book he mentions how the fog machines get turned on and he can't find his way through, and sees ghostly apparitions and things like that, and I'm not sure whether he meant it literally or whether it was a metaphor used whilst he was under the influence of drugs, creating that foggy atmosphere. I'm just not sure, and it wasn't really clear to me. But Certain scenes in the book were great and very vividly written. I liked the shower room brawl scene. The theft of the fishing boat was great. McMurphy leads, I think he has about 9 other patients with him that get granted a special excursion so that they can go on a fishing boat and hire out a fishing boat for the day. And ultimately McMurphy ends up stealing the fishing boat, goes out on the water, and they end up catching this massive fish. I think it was a salmon, I'm not quite sure, but they bring it back, and McMurphy manages to escape trouble from the police, and then it's not long before they're back in the mental ward. And at this time we're seeing an escalation in McMurphy's and Ratchet's rivalry, and things escalate very quickly, where McMurphy decides to sneak in a couple of women into the ward overnight and corrupt one of the night supervisors, and eventually Nurse Ratchet gets wind of this and seeks out to destroy McMurphy and discredit him among his fellow residents, and tries to destroy his reputation. And eventually McMurphy is subjected to electric shock therapy. That's a bit of a mouthful, in what they call the shock shop. So he gets zapped a couple of times and appears unfazed by it, and he goes, up the voltage, I need my batteries recharged. And a real smart ass, and very, very and he can't help but challenge the authority and pretty much say, is that all you've got? Come on. He was a very, very, very rich character and had a lot of levels and layers. And when the electric shock therapy doesn't work, Nurse Ratchet resorts to an ultimate solution, and that involves lobotomizing him. So towards the end of the book, we see McMurphy wheeled in on a gurney, and obviously his fellow patients who have become his friends are mortified by what they see. Chief Bromden in particular just looks at McMurphy on the gurney, staring off into space, almost catatonic, which a lobotomy will do to you, I believe. And in the end, Chief Bromden smothers McMurphy with a pillow as a mercy, because you see McMurphy get turned from this effervescent individual full of life and fun and cheekiness and smart-arsey, and gets reduced to a vegetable. And Bromden believes, well, that's no life for him, and McMurphy doesn't have a choice. But Bromden decides to give McMurphy a final mercy, and which is tragic, very, very tragic end to a great character. Overall, I thought the writing was really, really good. Just a couple of confusing parts which brought it down a little bit for me, and it did take me a fair while to get through the book. There was a lot that went on, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I picked it up. So what else happened this week? Well, I got some book mail from my brother. He thought that I might be interested in a relatively new Australian self-published author, Keith McArdle, and he sent me a really good copy of Fallen Empire, Book 1 of the Ironstone saga. Look at this cover art, isn't that sick? So for a self-published novel, it looks amazing, and I'll just read the back to you. So, assassin for hire, Vida Ironstone is on a mission for the King of Wenderland. While the pay's good, the odds are not, since the task requires him to travel deep into enemy territory. But first there's a little problem of his death to overcome, not to mention a malcontent travelling companion with no love for humanity and a deadly purpose of his own. Vida had better find a way to deal with both, and quickly, because controlled by an unseen power, hordes of giant spiders have attacked the capital. Facing vast numbers, Commander Torque of the King's Own and his small troop of elite soldiers won't be able to hold the walls for long. Vida's quest is vital. He must not fail, or the Empire will fall. Really good looking book. I don't know when I'm going to get to that one, but I am going to put it on one of my monthly TBRs for this year. I think it sounds really interesting. The quality of the work that went into the book looks amazing. It's very, very professionally done. You can check out Keith McCardle on his website. I'm going to put the link for that below, so be sure to check him out. He has written quite a few other books, and he's also on Goodreads, which I'll include the link below as well. I always like to support Australian authors, particularly ones that are starting out, and I believe this book in particular is $3.99 on Amazon at the moment, so be sure to check it out, give it a go. I know I will, and yeah, we'll look forward to that in the coming months. So that was a nice bit of mail to receive this week. So apart from that, not much else. I plan on watching the adaptation of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest maybe tonight or this week. I'm very interested in how Jack Nicholson will perform in the role of McMurphy. It's you know, I've known of the existence of the film for quite a number of years, and looking forward to watching it, even though it looks a little bit dated from the trailer I watched this week. But I'm interested to see how young some of the actors are in it that have gone on to become famous, so I'll let you know what I think of that. So what is coming up on the channel next week, I'll be looking at squeezing another book before the end of the month. I'm going to be reading Peter James's 10th Roy Grace book called Want You Dead. I've got 5 days to read that one, and should finish the month on reading 5 books, which isn't too bad considering Swan Song by Robert R. McCammon took me about 10 days to get through, so I was pretty happy with that. I'll also be doing my monthly wrap-up for April, and next week I'll also be revealing my TBR, which will include all my picks for each of the 4 weeks of May for the Horror Mayhem project that I've mentioned in previous videos, but I'll go through that in a bit more detail again next week. So, as always, please offer any comments or feedback below. I'll always respond to those. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, see you later.